Ukraine, but we get less than 0.3% of our trade with those countries. In fact, the things they make are things we already have here, energy and food, if the Prime Minister would get out of the way and let Canadians produce it. And maybe that's why Mark Carney disagrees with him. He says it's quite of inflation. It's quite broad, so it's not all imported inflation. In fact, most of it is now domestically generated inflation. And this Prime Minister is responsible for that inflation. Why won't he take responsibility?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know Canadians are struggling with the ability to pay their bills, with their abilities to support their families, with their concerns for the months ahead. That's why we've stepped up in terms of helping them. We've delivered, we're delivering help as a doubling of the GST rebate over 6 months with a check that should arrive in the coming weeks in Canadians' bank accounts. At the same time as we're moving forward with support for low-income renters and help for kids under 12 to send them to the dentists. Unfortunately, despite the Conservative leader's rhetoric, he is not supporting support for renters and dental. Why isn't he supporting?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, it's $500 billion of inflationary deficits that have bid up the cost of the goods we buy and the interest that we pay. Inflationary taxes are making it worse, including a tripling of the carbon tax, which will raise home heating prices. Maybe that's why Mark Carney, the future leader of the Liberal Party, is saying, and I quote, "But really now inflation is principally a domestic story." So he disagrees that it can all be blamed on the rest of the world. So who should Liberals believe? Their current leader or their future one?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we listen to Canadians who are talking about the fact that they're having trouble paying for groceries, having trouble paying their bills, worried about what the winter's going to look like, which is why we've stepped up as a government to deliver checks to support them in the coming weeks with a GST rebate that is going to restore, is going to help 11 million households, and measures to help low-income families pay the rent as well as send their kids to the dentist. Why isn't the Conservative Party that says it cares about affordability stepping up to support on rental and dental? Why won't they support Canadians?
Before we go to the next, to the Leader of the Opposition, I just want to remind the honourable members to pay attention to their whips. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This Prime Minister has built a house of debt. He doubled Canada's debt, added more debt than all Canadian Prime Ministers combined. He flooded our financial and mortgage system with easy cash, which bid up house prices, forcing Canadians to pay over $1 million for the average home in Toronto or Vancouver. And now the bill is coming due. Tomorrow, interest rates are expected to go up 0.5 to 3/4 of a point. And those same Canadians that this Prime Minister forced to over-leverage themselves will be hit with an uppercut of surprise higher interest rates his government said would never happen. How could he have been so irresponsible?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I know the Leader of the Opposition disagreed with us, but we chose to have Canadians' backs through the worst economic crisis of the pandemic in generations. We were there with supports for workers, for small businesses. We were there for supports for seniors and young people. We were there to support Canadians, not just because it was the right thing to do, but because it was also the smart thing to do to ensure that our economy would come back faster, and it has faster than many of our peer countries. This is why we know that supporting Canadians is the best way to build a strong future. Why aren't they supporting dental and rental for Canadians who need it?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He didn't have Canadians' backs. He went behind their backs so that he could give $54 million to the disastrous ArriveCan app that we didn't need, didn't work, and that developers could design in a single weekend. He went behind Canadians' back to give out $500 million to the We Charity organization. He went behind Canadians' back to give out CERB checks to prisoners and public servants who were actually on the payroll at the time. You know, these monstrous deficits wouldn't be quite so bad if he hadn't wasted so much money. Why did he waste so much and leave Canadians with so little?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The lesson for most Canadians from this pandemic we all have been going through is that Canadians are there for each other. We support each other through times of difficulty, and when we do that, we actually do better than if we had all tried to go our own way. The reality is, being there for each other is what has got us to where we are today, with a strong economy and given us the ability to step up and support directly those who need it, with GST rebates, with dental and rental supports. Again, dental and rental supports that Conservatives are opposed to.
L'honorable.
The honourable member for Belleville.